Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
Yeah, I'm Aaron.
This is Theatrically Media Productions, bring you another ranking video.
So, in light of all the Marvel content that's out there, especially on this channel, we're going to try and go over some DC content.
Yes, and over the years we try to balance out the big comic book companies as far as what they have available and what we decide to do a content or video on. And for this one, similar to when we ranked the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we are going to be focusing on DC Comics superhero films. And like we did the Cinematic Universe, we only did it to the point of the Infinity Saga, which composes of Phase 1 through 3. And of course, we decided to only do that section of the Marvel films because even before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there was a lot of other Marvel films that have and continue to be made outside of that space. And this list will include the what's currently dubbed, probably not officially, but kind of is the DC Extended Universe, which is that realm that universe of connected tissues that Zack Snyder started with Man of Steel, but we were going even before that with introducing films that have only been theatrically released. And we're only doing theatrically released live action movies.
That is true.
Not the animated ones, because that can be a list on itself.
Oh, that is... Yeah, we'll see that another day. But, in the spirit of things, this is going to be a ranking video, so we're going to be breaking them down from the bad to hopefully what will be the greatest. That's that collection.
So let's get started with the ranking. Up on your screen, you see the list of bad films.
Okay, so like I said, DC has struggled to catch up to what Disney Marvel has been able to achieve with their cinematic universe.
And they have their own self to blame because they were the first ones to start making films.
It's true.
And they had superheroes before Marvel was a official property, not counting timely comics before Marvel, but they were out there making content for Superman, Batman, and
really
like
just those two, but I mean there are a few on this list that aren't necessarily related to those particular that triad, that holy trinity and stuff. But you'll see that DC has some stinkers.
And from this list, where like you see the sequels to the Christopher Reeves films.
Oh, nobody watched those.
Those 3 and 4, the unknown spinoff of Supergirl,
Catwoman, Halle Berry variation.
At least she owns it.
I mean, that's true. You gotta give her props for that. Halle Berry truly owned that role.
She owns her fault in the film.
That is true.
Getting that Razzie. Even know how great Batman is as a character.
Some of those Batman movies thing. We're talking about Batman Forever.
Those Schumacher films.
Oh god.
Those are not. They had the reputation. We know them. The Batman Robins. I feel as though people are actually having some form of cult classics between.
Look, at some point, people find that certain movies can be so bad that they're good, and that's totally legit. That happens. I have a few movies where that might be the case, even though I'll still acknowledge them. They're bad movies.
Yeah. Even some obscure mainstream DC comics on this list. We put on the Return of Swamp Thing.
I don't even know if I know I watched it, but it was so bad I wanted to just get that out of my brain. So.
We've watched some of these films way when we were younger.
Yeah.
Because they broadcast back in the day. But
some of these movies they don't even rebroadcast them anymore. At least not for the mass audience to see.
No, they don't. Even some even more recent ones. The DCU they it's a huge mixed bag. And
we have always been very vocal about how we felt about those DC films. Not to say that they were all bad. There are good ones in there. At least
recent ones.
Yeah, the recent ones.
But from the bad list that you're seeing here, we included Batman v Superman, the first Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
even before that, Jonah Hex and Green Lantern, before the DCU was even
Ooh,
a
I
thing.
skipped that so bad.
Suicide Squad, it had a potential
It did.
because of the strong marketing, but
Too many cooks were in the kitchen.
Is you need focus, and it was then you could still, when they were struggling, they were just throwing stuff out there, and they still do.
Yeah, that has always been Warner Brothers' approach with a lot of these with this particular brand in and of itself. They are always throwing knives and everything they can find in the kitchen at the wall. And sometimes it works out, but with that particular hodgepodge of mess, you're going to come across some really bad blunders. And these movies definitely suffered for that.
Moving on. The films that you see some concepts, they had some nice strong ideas or strong visuals that you can stick out. Ones that we consider okay at the very least. And on this list, you see that we include some ones that also can be arguably considered good in their own right as well.
It's a matter of taste, but in this particular section, we're going to say they're not bad. They're just okay.
We're including Superman Returns.
Yeah.
It's an ode to the Christopher Reeves movie.
Yeah, that one. I feel as though that's like its major, running part for it, is that it is so much of the Christopher Reeves, Richard Donner films that it cannot exist without that.
The Dark Knight Rises, we reviewed this film as part of the Dark Knight trilogy. It's the weakest one of that trilogy.
That one made me mad. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to say something on that one. I remember going to the movies for the Dark Knight Rises, and when I was finished, I had tears. Not even tears in my eyes because it was the final, conclusion towards that particular director's, vision for that character. Because even the director, Christopher Nolan, didn't want to make that film. Everybody was over it at that point because the tragic loss of Heath Ledger, and that at that point it's like it was running on longer than it necessarily had to. But the choices towards the story and certain character developments in that particular film just threw. It was just disrespectful. So I do not like that film.
You have films that there's an okay list. You see that majority of the current DCEU is actually on this list.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 1984.
There was stuff in that movie that made sense, and I liked it, but it was you're not going to deny that it just did not work for the mass audience, and for the mass majority of that film, it just didn't click.
Like it had good. You could tell that this film had good intentions, but there's some idea, there's some concepts, and even some production, or for the situations where you really could have done
troubling situations.
Patty Jenkins needed a consultant. As you see in the bad list, we didn't include Josh Whedon's Justice League, but in the okay section, we still even though we're not counting it as a legit film, right? Despite it being a theatrical release, we decided to honor Zack Snyder's Justice League as the only version of it.
Yeah, so you could just throw the Justice League out the window. We all collectively have all accepted that movie just did not work, and that Zack Snyder's vision, once he finally got to be able to do it, is the only version that you really necessarily needed to see. That being said,
to us, we're not necessarily fans of Zack Snyder's vision.
It was nice to see it finished, but that's where it needs to end. It's done.
Yes. We see on this okay list, we have a review of Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
On this list in our channel that we said it was good, but I do like to. I am also someone who's not going to be a very bigoted or uppity person who's not going to say that some opinions do change over time.
Everybody is allowed to grow with their particular taste, and we can acknowledge that when it comes to that particular film, it was not as great as we originally
thought.
Good. Yeah, good. It was not as good as we originally thought it was.
And it's mainly because it has so many changes to us as we do consider ourselves definitely fans of the material, the source material that it ignored. the film.
It was almost, look, that entire film was almost all within the service of Harley Quinn.
More likely, Margot Robbie's
interpretation of that character.
A good actress who's good in her role.
Exactly.
But is tone deaf.
Exactly.
Shazam as a film. We do not have this, like, the only DCU film so far. We don't have a separate review or a video that discusses it.
And I don't think we ever really will.
Because upon watching it, when we saw the it's very it's completely tonally different.
Yeah.
Even if for the DCU, they do play with tone, even more so than Marvel Studios films. But this one looks very cheaply done as far as like a big budget CW film.
So cheap.
I really thought that if there was going to be a good person to tackle material, it would be Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
The one who directed the first 2 Harry Potter films.
Mm-hmm.
That's the director who good with working with younger audiences, but also that were able to tackle that big, awe-inspiring scope that the character of Billy Watson and Shazam needed. And also that cinematic flair that Shazam is completely lacking.
Exactly.
But let's move on. Also, we also said on this list, Man of Steel, the start of all. Like I said, we. Sometimes this films for me is flashing between good and okay, but because of the direction of how things went, as it progressed, that's why I still think Man of Steel is okay, despite how I feel.
And you know,
overall.
that's just really it. When you look, take it to where it needs to be.
Something we want to pick back on going to okay. So we talk about Zack Snyder. Another something we want to talk about is Watchmen. Watchmen is a film that can also be on that balancing act of okay and bad and good. Some people even thought it would be great when it comes to the director's cut of that film.
Yeah,
we have it okay on this list because structurally, plot wise, the Memento is all over the place. But it shares so much of that nihilistic approach. This is still part of that Alan. This is true to the story of Alan Moore. It's just like it's very choppy. That's why we do it, because it's very choppy. That's why we push it more to okay than we do it as good.
And when you compare it towards something that came later down the road, that still that thrives from the concept of the Watchmen universe, there's no comparison.
So let's move on to some good here. It's very slim pickings, but luckily we're getting into some highlights and the good. Quick point: the only $1 billion DC film that's not a Batman movie so far is what we consider good. And also we have a review on this channel, and that is Aquaman.
At first, I thought that having Jason Momoa was not going to work because I felt Jason Momoa was a one-note, actor when it came to, he works for what he's given and what he brings to the table.
James Wan, I feel as though even though that said with Jason Momoa, you can clearly show that this is James Wan's picture.
Yeah,
and he. Despite it, you could really show how much of an energetic director he is. He was also be surprisingly comics accurate with the world.
I really ate my words when it came to that film. Especially like I said, going back with Jason Momoa.
One thing that we say is a good film that we thought over time is the first Constantine movie.
I gotta say something. I fell in love with that character when I started reading the Hellblazer comics, which is where the Constantine film is loosely adapted from. And I need you to understand, when I stress the concept of it being loosely adapted, I'm not just saying that, to blow smoke. Keanu Reeves' John Constantine is doing the bare minimum aspect of what you would want to see from the Hellblazer himself. But with that, be that as it may, it's a stylistic approach that absolutely worked for that film.
The film, to me, my main problem with the film is why I don't feel as though it's higher. Is as high as some other superhero films. Is the structural how they decide how they decide to layer in the plot and how it progresses. It's very it has a very up and down quality to it of momentum, which is the reason why I feel is not my cup of tea is good, but I can understand. Keanu Reeves is like one of the few characters in which he actually is playing somewhat of another character other than himself.
That's true.
Batman Begins and Batman Returns on the good. That this is something we said what we didn't say about Batman Begins on the Dark Knight trilogy.
That's true.
Solid film in its own right.
Yeah, there's hardly many films can, at least when looking towards what you could do with a Batman property, can stand against it.
Help got Christopher Nolan on that. But before Christopher Nolan, as you can see, hey, Tim Burton made a strong impression with bringing back Batman.
That's so true.
To a much more mature approach.
Yeah.
Because people before Tim Burton, a lot of the strongest impression of Batman was the Adam West movie. I love Tim Burton as a filmmaker.
Concepts.
Early days Tim Burton as a filmmaker, and his first movie, Batman, Taken on Without Concepts, is a solid film in its own right. My only main problem with the movie is actually with it's not even because I like Jack Nicholson as a Joker. My only problem is the reason why this movie is not a great film to me is because of what they do with the Joker's origin. Is just does not sit well with me at all. To the point that it kind of in a way by itself is still a good film, but as a Batman comic fan, sometimes it is unwatchable. But Batman Returns is the masterpiece of what
I could watch that all the time.
The only bad thing about that, the only thing that we can say negative about the film is that how much of Michael Keaton's Batman is pushed back.
Yeah, that was weird. When you really look at the structure of the film and how it's mostly told from the villain's perspective than it is from Batman's perspective, where it is still supposed to be a Batman-centric, a Batman story. It was weird to see how far back in the foreground, in the background that he really was. I was like, where? Did he have a... What,
they forgot what movie this was.
Exactly. Was he... Hey, really, what was y'all thinking?
But here we have it. The great movies. Solid films from beginning to end with very, very little things wrong that we find with it.
Or needed to have been tweaked.
And on this list, you can see that the first Wonder Woman movie is on this list, and we still stand true to that.
If you were not sold with Gal Gadot's performance in Batman v Superman as her surmounting that she is Wonder Woman, this movie definitely, just wrote the ticket for it, because I loved her. I loved this movie. I loved her in it.
And continuing with what I'm about to say with Wonder Woman and the rest of these great movies is that these are not just considered great superhero films. No, these are also considered great films in general, because from the testament of filmmaking, from auteurs, you can be faithful to material while also having your own personal stamp to it.
You can teach from these films.
Yes, and the level of filmmaking, the level of storytelling. Of Trace in Point, Superman, the movie, the first motion picture.
That needs to be on everybody's list. I don't care who you are, whether or not you're a Marvel fan or a DC fan, or you're just a fan in general when it comes to comic book movies or any particular action movie or fantasy film in general. That movie needs to be on your list.
And something that Marvel and all other movies today had to thank, because if this one first big budget major property and Warner Brothers decided to take a chance on didn't work, we would not have none of these films.
Yep.
And films like The Dark Knight, which we could also have on this list, is a true testament of why people are taking superhero films seriously in the first place.
Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker will always go down in history as probably one of the most inspired approaches towards a particular character, villain-like character in film.
Also on the great list, Joker, from Joaquin Phoenix interpretation of it. Yet again, deliver an Oscar-winning performance for that character again. Shows just how much of how even the most fictional characters and the world is relatable to our everyday lives.
Considering that, that's particularly, it's funny how that particular film alone spoke to so many people in the world in itself. So, rather than that's
It's
good or
wildly divisive.
it's very divisive, and you can understand why. I mean, going in and watching that film, I even understood some of the divisive nature that comes from it, and it felt myself had to question what I was getting from it.
But of course, despite how it shows, even then, great filmmakers can take from one side of the spectrum of being realistic to even making great films that goes on a completely different realm with the wackiness.
Yeah.
James Gunn, who really did a good, like one of the best jobs in the DCU to date with the Suicide Squad.
That movie was so good.
Wow. We have a review on that movie on our channel.
Yep.
And it's a shame that the film came out during a pandemic.
I saw it, and not just that it came out during a pandemic, but it had to follow after a film that just fell completely below it as its predecessor.
So, like, I'm just surprised that film was even made.
Yeah.
Because like a big budget R-rated film that's like completely different from its predecessor, or what it was trying to do, like what the predecessors did right with it. But I feel like when DC, you can say when DC misses, they drop hard, but when they hit high, they hit mighty high to the point that it's like, wow.
We're just hoping that going forward, no matter what they decide to go do next, they'll continue to hit high. They'll or at least strive to rebuild that foundation that they so desperately need.
But there you have it. That's how we feel about the live action superhero DC films so far.
Guys, as always, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Please hit that bell down there for notifications. We want to hear from you all. How do you feel about many of the DC cinematic universe and the films that are associated with the DC content? Which ones are your favorites? Which ones do you not? So we want to hear. Let's get this conversation rolling.
My name is Adam.
And I'm Aaron.
This has been a Sick and Mid Productions.
See you later.